I stood at the entrance of my sister's house, staring at the scene through the window, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. There, in my sister Margaret's living room, was my entire family celebrating my birthday without me. The cake had my name on it. The decorations were in my favorite colors. But I wasn't invited. I received a text message that morning telling me to come to this address at 3 p.m. for a surprise, and I showed up with a heart full of hope, only to discover that the surprise was that they'd planned my birthday party as if I didn't exist. As I watched my daughter Amanda blow out candles meant for me while everyone laughed and took photos, something inside me shifted. For 48 years I had been the glue that held this family together, and they had just shown me exactly how much that meant to them. My name is Clara Martinez and I turned 48 that day. For most of my life I believed that family was everything. I was raised by parents who taught me that blood was thicker than water, that you always showed up for your people, that loyalty and love were the foundations of a good life. When my mother passed away 7 years ago, she held my hand and made me promise to keep everyone together. "You're the heart of this family, Clara," she whispered. "Don't let them drift apart." I took that promise seriously, maybe too seriously. I was the middle child of 3, sandwiched between my older sister Margaret and my younger brother Daniel. Margaret had always been the ambitious one, climbing the corporate ladder at a pharmaceutical company, married to a successful orthodontist named Paul. They had 2 kids in private school and a house in the suburbs that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Daniel was the baby, the one who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes, now working as a regional sales manager and married to Jennifer, a woman who treated family gatherings like networking events. And then there was me. I worked as a library coordinator at the local community college. I'd been married to Robert for 26 years. We had 2 children, Amanda, who was 24 and working in marketing, and Michael, who was 21 and finishing his last year of college. My life wasn't flashy, but it was full. Or at least I thought it was. I had spent decades being the family organizer. Every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, every birthday, every graduation, I was the one who sent out the invitations, coordinated the schedules, made sure everyone's dietary restrictions were accommodated, baked the cakes, wrapped the presents, and kept the peace when old arguments threatened to resurface. When Margaret and Daniel stopped speaking to each other over a disagreement about Dad's care during his final illness, I was the one who mediated for 6 months until they reconciled. When Amanda went through a rough breakup 2 years ago, I took a week off work to help her move apartments and held her while she cried. When Michael needed money for a study abroad program, Robert and I dipped into our savings to help make it happen. I showed up. That's what I did. I showed up consistently, reliably, without expecting anything in return, because that's what family meant to me. But lately things had felt different. It started small. Calls that went unreturned for days. Invitations I extended that were declined with vague excuses. Family group chats that fell silent when I contributed. I told myself everyone was just busy. Margaret had a big promotion. Daniel was traveling for work. Amanda was focused on her career. Michael was swamped with final projects. Life gets hectic, right? 2 months before my birthday, Margaret hosted a barbecue. I saw the photos on Facebook. Everyone was there. Daniel and Jennifer, Amanda, Michael, even Robert's brother and his family, who we usually only saw on holidays. I hadn't been invited. When I called Margaret the next day to ask about it, she sounded irritated. "Clara, it was just a last-minute thing. Don't make a big deal out of everything." "I'm not making a big deal," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm just surprised nobody mentioned it." "Well, you're always so busy with your library events and book clubs," she said dismissively. "We figured you wouldn't have time anyway." That stung, but I let it go. I always let things go. 3 weeks before my birthday, I suggested we have a family dinner to celebrate. I sent a message in our family group chat, offering to host and cook. The responses trickled in slowly. Margaret said she had a work conference. Daniel said he and Jennifer had plans they couldn't change. Amanda said she might be able to stop by briefly. Michael didn't respond at all. After 2 days of increasingly desperate attempts to find a date that worked, I gave up. Robert tried to comfort me. "We'll do something nice, just the 2 of us," he said. "You don't need a big production." But I wanted my family. I wanted to feel like I mattered to them the way they mattered to me. The week of my birthday, something strange happened. The family group chat became suddenly active, but not with messages to me. I could see that people were typing and responding, but the messages didn't appear in the thread. I realized they had created a separate chat without me. When I mentioned this to Robert, he got quiet. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Maybe it's just a technical glitch." But I knew better. You develop an instinct for these things when you've spent your whole life paying attention to the emotional temperature of your family. On the morning of my birthday, I woke up to find only one message on my phone. It wasn't from Amanda or Michael or Margaret or Daniel. It was from an unknown number. "Come to 847 Riverside Drive at 3 p.m. today. Don't be late." 847 Riverside Drive was Margaret's address. My heart leaped. This was it. They were planning a surprise party after all. All the weird behavior, the distance, the separate group chat, it was all to keep the secret. I felt foolish for doubting them. Of course they wouldn't forget my birthday. Of course they cared. I spent the entire day in a state of excited anticipation. I got my hair done. I wore my favorite dress, the blue one that Robert always said made my eyes look like the ocean. I even stopped by the bakery and picked up fancy chocolates to bring as a thank you gift for Margaret hosting. Robert was working a shift at the hospital where he worked as a physical therapist, but he'd given me a beautiful card that morning and promised we'd have a special dinner that evening. As I drove to Margaret's house, I practiced my surprised face in the rearview mirror. I didn't want to ruin their hard work by looking like I'd been expecting it. I parked down the street, not wanting to spoil the surprise by pulling into the driveway. I walked up the sidewalk with butterflies in my stomach, carrying my purse and the chocolates, ready to be delighted. And then I looked through the front window. The living room was decorated with streamers in turquoise and silver, my favorite colors. There was a banner that said, "Happy Birthday, Clara," in glittering letters. The dining table was loaded with food, dishes I recognized as my favorites. And there, in the center of the coffee table, was a beautiful two-tier cake decorated with buttercream flowers. But I wasn't inside. The party was happening without me. I could see everyone through the window. Margaret and Paul were pouring wine. Daniel and Jennifer were laughing about something. Amanda was taking selfies with the cake. Michael was showing something on his phone to his cousin Jason. Aunt Linda was there, and Uncle George and several family friends I'd known for years. There must have been 25 people in that house. And not one of them had thought to actually invite me. I stood there, frozen on the front step, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Maybe I was early? Maybe they were waiting for a specific time to text me to come in? I checked my phone. It was 3:07 p.m. The message had said 3 p.m. I watched for another moment and that's when I saw it. Amanda was lighting the candles on my cake. Margaret was dimming the lights. Everyone gathered around, and they started singing Happy Birthday. But they weren't singing it to save it for when I arrived. They were singing it now in my absence, as if this was the actual celebration. When they finished singing, Amanda bent down and blew out my candles. She made a wish. On my birthday cake. For my birthday. And everyone cheered and clapped. I felt something crack inside my chest. It was the sound of a promise breaking, the promise I'd made to my mother to keep this family together. But more than that, it was the sound of my own self-respect finally, after 48 years, demanding to be heard. I could have walked away. I could have gone home, cried into my pillow, and pretended I'd never seen this. I could have waited for the phone calls the next day. "Oh, Clara, we're so sorry we missed your birthday. We should do something next week." And accepted their excuses with the same grace I'd shown 1,000 times before. But I didn't. Instead, I opened my phone and did something I'd never done before. I took photos. I photographed the scene through the window, the banner with my name, the cake, my family celebrating without me. I photographed Amanda blowing out my candles. I photographed everyone laughing and eating cake that was supposed to be mine. My hands were shaking, but I captured everything. Then I walked up to the front door and rang the doorbell. The laughter inside died down. I heard footsteps approaching. The door opened and there stood Margaret, wine glass in hand, face flushed with warmth and happiness. When she saw me, every trace of joy drained from her expression. Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. "Clara," she said, and my name came out like an accusation, as if I was the one who'd done something wrong by showing up to my own birthday party. "Margaret," I replied, my voice surprisingly steady. I got a message telling me to come here at 3 p.m. So here I am. Behind her, I could see everyone in the living room freezing mid-conversation. Amanda dropped her fork. Michael's face went pale. Daniel looked at Jennifer, who looked at Margaret, who looked back at me with something I'd never seen in my sister's eyes before. Not guilt, not embarrassment, but annoyance. "Who told you to come?" Margaret asked, and the question landed like a slap. "Not come in, we were just about to call you." Or surprise. We wanted to set everything up first. Just a demand to know who had betrayed their plan to celebrate my birthday without me. "Does it matter?" I asked. "This is my birthday party, isn't it? My name is on the banner. That's my cake. Those are my favorite foods." But somehow, the only person who wasn't invited to Clara's birthday party is Clara herself. The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear the air conditioning humming. Someone's phone buzzed. A car drove past outside. Finally, Amanda stepped forward. My daughter, who I'd held as a newborn, who I'd rocked to sleep 1,000 times, who I'd supported through every triumph and failure, looked at me with something like pity and said, "Mom, this is so awkward. You weren't supposed to find out." "Find out what?" I asked, though I already knew the answer would destroy me. Amanda glanced at Margaret, who gave a tiny nod. "We planned a party for you," Amanda said slowly, as if explaining something to a child. "But we didn't. We didn't actually want you here. We wanted to celebrate your birthday as a family, without you making everything about yourself." The words didn't make sense. They were in English, I understood each individual word, but strung together like that, they created a meaning I couldn't process. "Without me making everything about myself?" I repeated. "It's my birthday." "See," Margaret said, turning to address the room. "This is exactly what we're talking about. Everything has to be about Clara. Clara's schedule, Clara's feelings, Clara's needs." I stood there, chocolate still in my hand, looking at the faces of people I'd loved my entire life. No one contradicted Margaret. No one said, "Wait, this is wrong." No one stepped forward to defend me. "I don't understand," I said, and I hated how small my voice sounded. "I've always tried to be there for all of you. Every holiday, every celebration, every crisis. I'm the one who shows up." "Exactly," Daniel said, speaking for the first time. "You're always there. Do you know how exhausting that is? You're constantly organizing things, constantly trying to force us all together, constantly making us feel guilty if we can't attend whatever event you've decided we should all be at." "I was trying to keep us close," I said, my throat tightening. "I was trying to honor Mom's wish that we stay connected." "Mom's wish, or your need to control everyone," Jennifer added, and the cruelty in her voice was casual, as if she'd said something obvious. "You use family obligation as a weapon, Clara. If we don't show up, we're bad people. If we have other priorities, we're neglecting the family. It's manipulation." I looked at Robert's brother Tom, who I'd helped move 3 times. I looked at Aunt Linda, who I'd visited every week when she was recovering from surgery. I looked at my cousin Sarah, whose daughter I'd tutored for free for an entire semester. None of them met my eyes. "So you decided to throw me a birthday party and not invite me?" I said, and I could feel something building inside me, something that had been compressed for years, decades maybe, pushing against my ribs like a living thing trying to break free. "That was the solution? We wanted to be together as a family," Margaret said, as if this explained everything. "Without the pressure of you being there, keeping score of who brought what, who's talking to who's not participating enough. We just wanted one gathering where we could relax. And it happened to be on my birthday," I said. "Well, you're always planning something for your birthday," Amanda said, defensive now. "You always make such a big deal about it. We thought this year we'd just handle it ourselves, celebrate you in our own way, and then you could do whatever you wanted separately." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw someone I didn't recognize. When had she become this person? When had I become someone my own child didn't want at her birthday celebration? "You're right," I said quietly, and everyone seemed to relax slightly, as if I was about to apologize, to minimize myself one more time, to let them off the hook. I did make a big deal about my birthday, because it was the one day a year I thought I could count on my family to show me I mattered to them. But I was wrong. "Mom, don't be dramatic," Michael said, and hearing him, my baby, who I'd supported through anxiety attacks and academic struggles, who I'd advocated for with teachers and counselors. Hearing him dismiss my pain as dramatics made something inside me finally snap. "I'm not being dramatic," I said, and my voice came out stronger than before, fueled by a clarity I'd never felt. "I'm being honest. For the first time in my life, I'm going to be completely honest with all of you. You want to know what's exhausting? It's not me organizing family events. It's me spending 48 years trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it. It's me sacrificing my time, my energy, my money, my emotional bandwidth for a family that celebrates my birthday without me." "Clara, you're overreacting," Margaret said, her voice taking on a patronizing tone I'd heard 1,000 times before. "We were going to call you later. We have a gift for you and everything." "A gift?" I repeated. "Let me guess. A gift card to somewhere generic, picked up at the last minute, wrapped in whatever bag someone found in their closet." The flush on Margaret's face told me I was right. "What do you want from us?" Daniel asked, spreading his hands. "You want us to apologize? Fine. I'm sorry you found out about the party. I'm sorry your feelings are hurt. But honestly, Clara, maybe this is a wake-up call for you to realize that you're not actually as essential to everyone's life as you think you are." The laugh that came out of me was sharp and brittle. "You're absolutely right," I said. "I'm not essential. I thought I was. I thought that if I just loved you enough, supported you enough, showed up enough, eventually you'd appreciate it. Eventually I'd get back even a fraction of what I gave. But you can't get blood from a stone, and you can't get love from people who see your devotion as an inconvenience." "Now wait a minute," Uncle George said, standing up from the couch. "That's going too far. We all care about you, Clara." "Do you?" I asked, turning to him. "When's the last time you called me? When's the last time any of you initiated contact with me that wasn't to ask for something? When's the last time you remembered something important to me without me reminding you?" Silence answered me. "That's what I thought," I said. I turned back to Margaret. "You said I use family obligation as a weapon. You know what? Maybe I did. Maybe I was so desperate to keep you all in my life that I convinced myself organizing events was the same thing as being loved. Maybe I confused being useful with being valued. That's on me. But this," I gestured to the party behind her, "this is on all of you." I pulled out my phone and held up the photos I'd taken. I documented this. Every bit of it. The banner with my name, the cake, all of you celebrating without me. And you know what I'm going to do with these. Everyone looked nervous now. In our family, in our social circle, image was everything. The thought of this getting out, of their friends and neighbors knowing they'd thrown a birthday party for someone and deliberately excluded that person, was clearly causing panic. "Are you going to post them?" Jennifer asked, her voice tight. "Because that would be incredibly petty." "Petty?" I repeated. "You think posting photos of my own birthday party would be petty?" "It would embarrass everyone," Amanda said. "Mom, come on. Don't do this." "Do what exactly?" I asked. "Tell the truth? Share what actually happened. Why should I protect you from the natural consequences of your actions?" "Because we're family," Margaret said, and the audacity of those words coming from her in this moment after everything was stunning. "No," I said, and the finality in my voice seemed to surprise everyone, including me. "Family doesn't do this. Family doesn't celebrate someone's birthday without them. Family doesn't see devotion as manipulation and love as control. You're not my family. You're people who share my DNA and have taken advantage of my kindness for nearly 5 decades. "Clara, you're upset," Aunt Linda said, standing up. "Why don't you come inside, have some cake, and we can talk about this? You want me to come celebrate my birthday party that you threw without inviting me?" I asked. "You want me to sit in that room with all of you, eat cake that my daughter blew the candles out on, and pretend this is normal? Pretend I'm not devastated? Pretend I don't see exactly who you all are now? What are you going to do?" Michael asked, and he sounded young, suddenly uncertain. I looked at my son, and I felt a wave of grief so profound it almost knocked me over. I failed him somehow. I'd raised a man who thought this was acceptable. But I couldn't fix that now. I couldn't fix any of them. All I could fix was myself. "I'm going to go home," I said. "I'm going to have a birthday celebration with the one person who actually cares about me. my husband Robert. And then tomorrow I'm going to start the process of removing myself from your lives. That's ridiculous, Daniel said. You're being melodramatic. Am I? I asked. What would you call it if someone threw you a birthday party and didn't invite you? No one had an answer. Here's what's going to happen, I said. And I was surprised by how calm I felt, how clear everything suddenly was. I'm resigning from my position as family organizer. No more holiday planning. No more birthday coordination. No more mediating your arguments or keeping everyone connected. You're all adults. You can figure it out yourselves. Fine, Margaret said, crossing her arms. Maybe that's for the best. I'm also removing myself from the family group chat, from your emergency contact lists, from your children's lives. Amanda, Michael, I love you both, but I'm done chasing you. If you want a relationship with me, you're going to have to put in effort. Real effort. Not a text on my birthday or a generic Mother's Day card. Mom, you're being crazy, Amanda said. No, I corrected. I'm being sane for the first time in years. And finally, I'm going to send these photos to everyone in this room, along with a detailed email explaining what happened here today. Not to embarrass you, though that will be a side effect, but because I want documentation. I want proof of the moment I decided I deserved better than this. You wouldn't, Jennifer said. Watch me, I replied. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. Mom didn't actually tell me to keep everyone together. That's what I told myself to justify making you all the center of my world. Her actual last words to me were, don't forget yourself, Clara. Don't lose yourself in taking care of everyone else. I did forget myself. For 48 years, I forgot who I was in the pursuit of being what you all needed. But I'm remembering now. I walked down the steps, my legs shaking but my back straight. Behind me, I heard voices rising in argument. Margaret and Daniel were fighting. Amanda was crying. Someone was calling after me, but I didn't turn around. I got in my car, drove 2 blocks, pulled over, and sat there while my entire body shook with the force of what I'd just done. Then I called Robert. Hey, birthday girl, he answered, warmth in his voice. How's the surprise party? It was exactly that, I said, and my voice cracked. Robert, can you come home early? I need you. I'm leaving now, he said immediately. 20 minutes. Whatever happened, we'll handle it together. I drove home, walked into our empty house, and stood in the kitchen where I'd baked countless birthday cakes for people who couldn't be bothered to invite me to my own party. Then I did something I'd never done before. I opened my laptop and began typing. The email took me 3 hours to write. I included the photos, a detailed timeline of events, and a clear explanation of what had occurred. I didn't editorialize. I didn't need to. The facts spoke for themselves. My family had thrown me a birthday party and deliberately excluded me from it, then acted like I was the problem when I showed up. I attached the email to every person who'd been at that party, plus several mutual friends and extended family members who hadn't been there. I copied in my kids-in-laws, Margaret's work friends whose information I had from helping plan her promotion party, Daniel's business associates I'd met at networking events I'd organized for him. Before I sent it, Robert came home. He'd brought flowers and takeout from my favorite restaurant. When I showed him what I was about to do, he read through everything carefully, then looked at me with tears in his eyes. Send it, he said. You've protected them for too long. I hit send at 6:47 p.m. on my 48th birthday. The responses started coming within minutes. First, angry texts from Margaret demanding I delete the email and apologize. Then confused messages from extended family members who couldn't believe what they were reading. Then, surprisingly, messages of support from people I barely expected to hear from. My cousin Rachel, who I hadn't seen in 5 years, wrote, I always wondered why you put up with how they treated you. I'm proud of you for finally standing up for yourself. An old family friend named Patricia sent, I received the invitation to your party but was told you preferred it to be a surprise for later. Now I understand what actually happened. This is unconscionable. I'm so sorry. Robert's sister called and spent an hour on the phone with me, sharing stories of times she'd noticed my family taking advantage of me, but hadn't felt it was her place to say anything. You light up every room you're in, she said. They're idiots for not seeing that. But the most surprising message came from someone I hadn't expected. My son Michael. At 9:30 p.m. he showed up at our door. His eyes were red, and his voice was hoarse when he spoke. "Mom," he said, "can I come in?" I let him in, and we sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd helped him with homework, where we'd had countless conversations about life and choices and what it means to be a good person. I'd apparently failed at that last part. "I'm sorry," he said, and he was crying now. "I'm so sorry. I didn't realize what we were doing. Amanda made it sound like we were protecting you from having to plan your own party. She said you'd be relieved to not have to coordinate everything for once. I didn't know the plan was to celebrate without you. I thought we were just setting up and you'd arrive later." "But you saw me blow up," I said. "You heard what everyone said. And you told me I was being dramatic." "I know," he said miserably. "I panicked. Everyone was looking at me, and Aunt Margaret was giving me this look, and I defaulted to what I always do, which is go along with whatever the family wants. But Mom, that was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. I wanted to forgive him immediately. That was my instinct, my default setting, smooth things over, minimize the hurt, make everything okay. But I caught myself. What changed? I asked instead, "Why are you here now? After you left, Aunt Margaret started talking about how you'd always been too sensitive, how you'd always made everything about yourself. And Amanda agreed. And Uncle Daniel said you probably calm down in a few days and we should just ignore you until then. And I looked around at everyone eating your cake, drinking wine, laughing about how dramatic you were being, and I realized something. You're the only person in this family who's ever actually seen me." He took a shaky breath. "When I was 16 and having panic attacks, Dad wanted me to just push through it. Amanda said I was being weak. But you sat with me. You researched therapists. You drove me to appointments. You never made me feel broken. And last year, when I wanted to change my major and everyone said I was wasting my potential, you were the only one who asked me what I actually wanted. You've done that my whole life, seen me as a person, not as an idea of who you wanted me to be. And I repaid you by standing there while everyone dismissed your pain." I felt my own tears starting. "Michael." "No, let me finish," he said. "I'm not here asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve that yet. I'm here telling you that you were right. About all of it. We've been treating your love like it's an obligation instead of a gift. We've been taking advantage of your kindness and calling it manipulation when you ask for anything in return. That's not okay. That's not who I want to be." "What about Amanda?" I asked. His face clouded. "She's still at Aunt Margaret's. They're all planning how to do damage control from your email. They want to craft a response that makes them look better. Amanda thinks you're having some kind of midlife crisis and that if they just wait it out, you'll apologize and things will go back to normal." "Normal," I repeated. "Normal was me giving everything and getting nothing." "I know," Michael said. "And I don't want that for you anymore. I don't want you to forgive me because it's easier for everyone if you do. I want to earn my way back into your life if you'll let me. I want to be the kind of son who deserves a mother like you." We talked for 3 more hours that night. He told me things I hadn't known, how Margaret had been complaining about me for years, calling me needy and controlling, how Amanda had started seeing me as an obligation, rather than a person she wanted to spend time with, how the family group chat had become a place to coordinate avoiding me rather than connecting with me. "They planned 4 family events in the last 6 months, Michael said. "I thought you couldn't make them because of work. But they never invited you. They scheduled them specifically when they knew you'd be busy." Each revelation was another small death, another piece of the family I'd thought I had crumbling away. But strangely, I didn't feel as devastated as I'd expected. Instead, I felt lighter. The truth, as brutal as it was somehow easier to carry than the confusion and self-doubt I'd been living with. That night, after Michael left with a promise to call me the next day, I sat with Robert and looked at the flood of responses to my email. There were angry ones, defensive ones, but there were also dozens of supportive messages. People I'd helped over the years were coming out of the woodwork to share their own stories of how I'd been there for them, how my kindness had made a difference in their lives. "You've touched more people than you realize," Robert said, reading over my shoulder. "You've just been focusing your energy on people who were never going to appreciate it." He was right. I'd been so busy trying to earn love from my immediate family that I'd overlooked the community of people who already valued me. The next morning, I woke up to 127 new messages. I deleted the angry ones without reading them. I responded to the supportive ones with gratitude. And I started the process of restructuring my life. First, I blocked Margaret's number. Then Daniel's. Then Amanda's. I didn't block Michael because he'd shown genuine remorse, but I sent him a message. I love you, but I need space. If you want a relationship with me, you need to respect that I'm rebuilding myself right now. That means no pressure, no guilt, no messages on behalf of other family members. Can you do that? He responded. Absolutely. Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready. Then I started reaching out to people I'd neglected, while focusing on my ungrateful family. I called old friends I'd lost touch with. I accepted invitations I'd previously declined because of family obligations. I signed up for a pottery class I'd been interested in for years, but never had time for because I was too busy organizing other people's lives. The first week was hard. I kept reaching for my phone to text the family group chat about some piece of news or funny meme. I'd think of Amanda and have to consciously stop myself from calling to check in on her. My fingers would hover over Margaret's contact information before I remembered that she'd stood in her doorway and asked why I was there at my own birthday party. But by the second week, it got easier. I started sleeping better. The tension I'd carried in my shoulders for years began to ease. I laughed more. I had energy for hobbies and interests I'd abandoned. I felt like I was rediscovering myself after decades of being defined by how useful I could be to others. 3 weeks after my birthday, I received a letter in the mail. It was from my Aunt Linda. The envelope was thick, and when I opened it, I found a 5-page handwritten letter. In it, she apologized for her silence at the party. She explained that she'd been so shocked by what was happening that she froze, and by the time she found her voice, I was already leaving. I've watched you sacrifice yourself for this family for your entire life, she wrote. I watched you parent your siblings when you were barely more than a child yourself. I watched you mediate your parents' fights and take on emotional burdens no child should carry. I watched you grow into a woman who gave and gave and gave, and I watched your family take and take and take. I said nothing because it wasn't my place, but my silence made me complicit. I'm sorry. You deserved better from all of us, but especially from me because I knew better. She went on to share that after my email, several family members had reached out to her asking her to convince me to let this go and stop being vindictive. She'd refused. You're not being vindictive, she wrote. You're being honest. There's a difference. She ended the letter with an invitation. I'd like to take you to lunch if you're willing. Not to talk about them, but to talk about you. I'd like to know the Clara who exists outside of her role as family caretaker. I think she must be extraordinary. I called her that afternoon, and we met for lunch the following Saturday. It was the first of many lunches. Aunt Linda became one of my closest confidants during this period. Someone who understood the family dynamics but wasn't invested in maintaining the status quo. She validated my experience without trying to fix it or minimize it. A month after my birthday, Amanda showed up at my house unannounced. I saw her through the window standing on the porch looking uncertain. Part of me wanted to let her stand there, to let her feel a fraction of the exclusion I'd felt. But I opened the door. Mom, she said, and her voice was small. Can we talk? I stepped aside and let her in, but I didn't offer her tea or snacks or any of the welcoming gestures that used to be automatic. I just waited. I miss you, she said. I miss talking to you every day. I miss your advice. I miss my mom. What you miss is having me available whenever you need something, I said, and my voice was gentle but firm. That's not the same as missing me. That's not fair, she protested. I love you. Do you? I asked. Because you stood in your aunt's house and told me I wasn't supposed to find out that you'd thrown me a birthday party without me. You blew out my candles. You told me I was being dramatic when I was hurt. What part of that is love? She started crying. Aunt Margaret said you'd be happier not having to deal with planning everything. She said we were doing you a favor. And you believed her, I said. Even though you've known me your entire life, even though you've seen how much family means to me, you believe that I'd be happy being excluded from my own birthday. I didn't think about it like that, Amanda said. Everyone was going along with it and it seemed easier to just agree. That's the problem, Amanda. You chose easier over right. You chose going along with the crowd over standing up for your mother. And when I confronted all of you, you chose their comfort over my pain. I know, she whispered. I know, and I hate myself for it. Mom, please, I'm sorry. Tell me how to fix this. I sat down across from her. I don't know if you can fix it, I said honestly. Trust isn't something you can rebuild with an apology. It takes time and consistent action. And right now I don't trust you. I don't trust that you'll choose me when it's hard. I don't trust that you'll stand up for me when others are tearing me down. I don't trust that you see me as a person worthy of respect and consideration. How do I earn that trust back? She asked. I don't know, I said. That's something you'll have to figure out. But I can tell you what won't work. Showing up here with tears and apologies and expecting me to comfort you and tell you it's okay. It's not okay. What happened wasn't okay. And I'm not going to minimize my hurt to make you feel better about hurting me. She flinched but nodded. Okay, she said. Okay. Can I at least text you sometimes? Can we stay in contact while I figure out how to be better? You can text me, I said. But I'm not going to respond immediately anymore. I'm not going to be available on demand. I'm going to respond when I'm ready, when I have the emotional capacity, when I feel like it. And if I don't feel like it, I won't. You don't get unlimited access to me anymore. Nobody does. She left looking shaken, and I felt guilty for about 10 minutes before reminding myself that boundaries aren't cruel. They're necessary. I'd spent 48 years without them, and look where that got me. Margaret, on the other hand, doubled down. She sent me a long email explaining that I was being unreasonable, that I'd weaponized my hurt feelings to make everyone look bad, that I'd destroyed family unity with my petty revenge. She claimed that the party had been a miscommunication, and that I'd blown everything out of proportion. I didn't respond. There's no point in arguing with someone who's rewriting history. Daniel took a middle approach. He sent a brief text saying, I'm sorry if your feelings were hurt. That wasn't the intention. Let's move past this. The if in that apology told me everything I needed to know about his understanding of the situation. I didn't respond to him either. 2 months after my birthday, something remarkable happened. I got a call from a woman named Diane who'd been at the party. We'd known each other for years through various family connections, but we'd never been close. She asked if she could take me to coffee, and I was curious enough to say yes. Over lattes, she told me that watching what happened at my birthday party had been a wake-up call for her. I saw myself in you, she said. I saw how my own family treats me, always expecting me to coordinate, to organize, to show up, but never reciprocating. Your email gave me the courage to set boundaries with my own family. She'd started saying no to unreasonable requests. She'd stopped organizing the family reunion that nobody appreciated. She'd begun prioritizing her own needs over everyone else's comfort. It's been hard, she said, but it's also been freeing. And I wanted to thank you for showing me it was possible. I realized then that my birthday disaster had become something larger than my personal pain. It had become a story that resonated with people who'd never learned to value themselves as much as they valued others. My email had given people permission to examine their own relationships and ask themselves if they were getting back what they were giving. Over the following months, I heard from more than a dozen people with similar stories. Women mostly who'd been the family organizers, the peacekeepers, the ones who bent over backward to keep everyone happy at the expense of their own happiness. They thanked me for sharing my story. They told me I'd inspired them to advocate for themselves. It was strange and humbling and ultimately healing to realize that my worst birthday had led to something meaningful. 3 months after my birthday, Michael asked if he could come visit. He'd been texting regularly, always respectful of my boundaries, never pushing for more than I was willing to give. He'd sent me articles he thought I'd find interesting, photos of things that reminded him of me, thoughtful questions about my life that showed genuine interest. When he came over, he brought a photo album. I made this for you, he said. I went through all my old photos and pulled out every moment you were there for me. Every game you attended, every award ceremony, every difficult moment when you showed up. I wanted you to see how much you've been present in my life, and I wanted to document that I noticed. I noticed, Mom. I just didn't appreciate it enough. We went through the album together. There I was at his elementary school plays, his middle school science fairs, his high school graduation. There I was helping him move into his college dorm, visiting him during parents' weekend, attending his therapy appointments. Photo after photo of me showing up, being present, offering support. The thing is, Michael said, you're in almost all my important memories. But when I look at Amanda's photos or at Aunt Margaret's social media, you're barely there. Not because you weren't present, but because they didn't think to include you in the frame. They were so used to you being the photographer, the organizer behind the scenes, that they forgot to make you part of the picture. He was right. I'd spent so much time making sure everyone else's memories were documented that I'd forgotten to ensure I was in them. I want you in the picture, Mom, Michael said. Not just literally, but figuratively. I want you to be someone I celebrate, not just someone who organizes celebrations. I want to be someone you can count on, the way you've always been someone I could count on. It was a start. Not forgiveness yet, but the foundation for it. By the time my 49th birthday approached, my life looked completely different. I'd developed close friendships with people who appreciated me. I'd pursued hobbies I'd always pushed aside. I'd reconnected with parts of myself I'd forgotten existed. Robert and I had grown even closer, taking dance classes together and planning trips we'd always talked about but never prioritized. I didn't hear from Margaret or Daniel at all, and I was surprised by how little I missed them. The people I'd thought were the center of my world had actually been anchors holding me in place, preventing me from exploring who I could be without them. Amanda had been making genuine efforts. She called regularly, but she'd stopped expecting me to drop everything to talk. She asked about my life instead of just talking about hers. She sent me flowers on Mother's Day with a card that said, "Thank you for showing me what it means to have self-respect. I'm still learning from you." When my 49th birthday arrived, I woke up to a text from Michael. "Happy birthday, Mom. No pressure to celebrate with anyone. Just wanted you to know I'm thinking of you and grateful you were born." Amanda sent a similar message. "Happy birthday to the strongest woman I know. I love you." Robert had planned a surprise for me. Not a party, but a weekend away at a bed and breakfast I'd always wanted to visit. No family drama, no obligations, just 2 days of being pampered and appreciated. But the most meaningful message came from Aunt Linda. "Happy birthday, Clara. This year you gave yourself the gift of recognizing your worth. I hope you spend today celebrating the extraordinary woman you are." I did celebrate myself that day. Not with a big party or a house full of people who saw me as useful rather than valuable, but with the small quiet joy of knowing that I'd finally learned the difference between being loved and being used. That evening, as Robert and I sat on the porch of the bed and breakfast watching the sunset, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. When I opened it, I saw it was a group message that had been forwarded to me. The original message was from Margaret to Daniel and Amanda. "I can't believe it's been a year and Clara still hasn't apologized for ruining her birthday and embarrassing the family. She's so stubborn." I showed it to Robert. He read it, then looked at me with raised eyebrows. "Are you going to respond?" I thought about it for a moment, then shook my head. "No," I said. "She still doesn't get it. She thinks I ruined my birthday. She thinks I embarrassed the family. She's waiting for an apology from me for having the audacity to be hurt by their cruelty." "And," Robert prompted. "And she can keep waiting," I said. "Because I didn't ruin my birthday. I saved the rest of my life. I'm not going to apologize for that." I deleted the message and put my phone away. The sunset was beautiful, Robert's hand was warm in mine, and for the first time in 49 years, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. In a life I'd built for myself, surrounded by people who chose me not because I was useful, but because they genuinely valued who I was. The family I'd been born into had taught me what I was worth to them, which was very little. But in walking away, in refusing to accept breadcrumbs and calling it love, I discovered what I was actually worth, which was so much more than I'd ever imagined. My 48th birthday party happened without me, but my 49th year? That was entirely mine. And it was the best gift I'd ever received.